Hey guys, I want to make a video about the nerfs on November 25th. This is a few days after, or even a day after. I wanted to wait until we see what kind of the meta turns out before I make a video, because everyone's making videos and talking about how these nerfs are really bad. My opinion before the nerfs was that they weren't going to change anything for rotation, because they just like in the last expansion, in the Grand Blue expansion, they wanted to wait until after the new cards come out to see what happens. But unlike last expansion, where Puppet Portal was kind of the best class, situationally the best class, very good in ladder, showed up a lot in tournaments. They didn't nerf anything from that, but they also added a new good card. They added Kukuru at the same time as all the other cards. This mini expansion is a little different because they didn't add anything for Shadow that really stands out as just a good replacement card auto include. And so they wanted to see if like these new cards would balance out the meta. But there was a nerf for Shadow, very slight for rotation. Shouldn't affect rotation too much, but the new cards added also helped balance out the meta. Not so much like last expansion, where Puppet Portal continued to be dominant. So the nerfs were Skull Ring went up from 3 play points to 4 play points. Makes it pretty much unplayable. The good thing about Skull Ring is that it curves really well. In Unlimited, it curves really well into Skeleton Prince. And this version of Skull Ring does not at all. Doesn't curve very well at all. That in a rotation, Skull Ring curved really well into Cerberus, because if you played on 3, the countdown will go down and get to reanimate 2 on turn 5 for Cerberus. So it's pretty much unplayable now. It kind of makes sense because Unlimited Shadow was very dominant. The other nerf is like Unlimited only. They raised the play points for Hippogriff Rider from 5 to 6. Aggro Dragon is very, very strong. This is kind of a slight nerf for them. They only usually ran like maybe 2 copies of this. Maybe 3 or 2 copies. Very strong card, especially when you're going first. If you fill up your board really quickly, it just punishes your opponent for not having a board clear. They might still run 1 copy. I'm not sure. I haven't really checked up on it. But both these nerfs affected Unlimited more, so people were kind of upset because they wanted to see Shadow nerfed or like a Guildneys nerf. But so what happened to the meta in the past day? This Twitter account checks up on a bunch of win streaks. So the decks that are getting win streaks right now, which you probably would have guessed, are stuff like the new Haven list, the new Haven Lion list. Includes the new legendary. What they're also doing is playing the Aether to pull the new legendary out, so you essentially have extra copies to get, pretty much. Not really extra copies, but like more consistently get your legendary lion out. So this list is pretty popular, doing pretty well, as expected. Like the more holy lion crystals you add to the deck, the more consistent and better it becomes, and just like exponentially better. Kind of scary. Dragon was already doing very well. It was like 2nd place in rotation ladder, behind mid-range Arcus Shadow. It's still doing pretty well. Some decks are including the new legendary. I think I saw one. Yeah, some decks are including the new legendary. But like the decks with the rise of Forest, I think PDK is probably doing better. New Lily, really good for Forest. Also the new Lisa. So Force is doing very well. PDK is doing this better, maybe about the same or better. The new Lion list is ridiculous. Also, Mysteria Rune, seeing an uprise. This is the unlimited version. Let's see if I can pull it. I think this is the, yeah, this is the like something like a rotation version of it. Running, looks like Gilneas, I expect. A lot of decks running Gilneas. Also, I guess Sword's doing pretty well too. They're including the new legendary. I was a little skeptical on it, but it seems like just curving out and then getting your Gilneas down later is really good. Just having big board actually makes a really good board. There is the anti-synergy with Zelia, but I think if you just pull another 2-drop, like I think another list here, yeah, like something like this, like just pulling out the other 2-drops fine. So I think they were pretty smart with the nerfs. They saw. I don't like nerfing everything all the time. Obviously, Shadow is very strong, like close to 60% win rate overall in rotation. So they definitely had to do something, but they didn't do like too much, which means that Shadow's probably still very close to tier 1, maybe tier 2. This says that that they think that Arcus Shadow is tier 2, that Forest, Sword, and Mysteria Rune are tier 1. The Lion Haven deck is, and PDK Dragon and Arcus is tier 2. Tenko Haven Dark Feast Blood is tier 3, and Portal is tier 4. This is like also like just day 1. The meta can change pretty quickly. But what we saw a downshift of Arcus Shadow, in the opinion of I think a lot of Japanese players, go from tier 1 to tier 2. That's kind of interesting what happened with these new inclusions of cards. It's kind of like weird, like maybe they could have avoided this by kind of switching out which cards got included in the first part of the expansion, and then which cards got included into the mini expansion. But I think the whole point of the mini expansion is kind of shake up the meta halfway through. Those are my quick thoughts on it. Yeah, I didn't really want to make a skies falling kind of like video before we saw some changes in the meta. I think a lot of people saw the nerf and like, oh no, Arcus Shadow is just gonna still be the best. But, you know, it was kind of like, it's kind of like a fragile deck. Because if it doesn't get the early mid game control, it kind of falls behind. If it can get rushed down, like the new inclusion to Forest helps it rush down like really well with Lily. Lily's pretty good. The consistency added to Mysteria Rune also helps a lot. Having more ward, like it's pretty relevant that the new Greya is a ward card. Yeah, it's interesting. Anyway, that's my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. See ya.